What's up guys, SpartanCat, and in today's Battlecats video, I will attempt to balance and re-rank all of the units in the Battlecats. Well, at least these first 20. But I have 4 tiers: rework, buff, balance, and nerf. So we're going to determine whether these units are balanced, or they need a buff, a nerf, or if they just need to be completely redesigned, reworked, and fixed. If you enjoy this video, find it helpful, anything, consider liking, subscribing, and commenting, as it helps grow our channel and it allows me to do what I do. And also consider turning notifications on so you never miss an upload. Apologies for the slurred speech. I got braces a few days ago and it's been a journey. But my first unit on this list is Filibuster, and I think he needs a rework. You know, his true form gives him more health, doubles his damage and DPS, but really not a whole lot going on there. If he gets reworked, he could be something like Picolan Pastolan, but the problem with him is an extremely long time between attack and 1 knockback, low stats, so he really isn't good for a whole lot right now, and just increasing his range or increasing his damage or health, it won't help him, so he needs a complete rework. He needs his mechanics fixed, and maybe another stat boost or something, so he needs more than just a buff. And next I have my favorite guy, Eraser Cat, and I'm thinking he goes somewhere between nerf and balanced, but I'm going to put him in balanced, contrary to the thumbnail. And the reason I do that is, you know, it's really in the middle, but there's only so many good meat shields in the game, and I'm really in the middle with this issue. You know, I think that he could be nerfed a little bit, and that wouldn't be horrible for the community, but at the same time, so many people rely on him, and he does just enough to hold enemies back. So I think he's balanced on second thought. You know, after that, we have Mecha Bun, and Mecha Bun is in dire need of a health buff, I think. You know, not only is his DPS really lackluster for his range, I mean, his strength and against relics helps out, but relics push very hard, and, you know, I think Mecha Bun could definitely use some basic DPS damage and stat boosts, health boosts. He could maybe use another niche. So you could also say rework, but I think if you buff his base stats, then he'll be alright. You know, maybe give him 50% more health or something, 20% more damage, something along those lines, because right now he's underpowered, and it's really sad watching all of those YouTube videos of people deploying him against the real Bun and, you know, watching Mecha Bun lose. It's sad because you fight hard throughout the game and you get a weak Bun, but dire need of a health and damage buff. Bomber, he needs to get nerfed, I think. You know, Bomber is a great unit, and this isn't an insult to him. It's actually a good thing. He's so good that he might need to get nerfed a little bit, because just one of him, if he stays alive, could technically perma-freeze enemies. And there's never just one of them out. There's usually 5 or 10 out, so think about that. You know, for the money you're putting into that, he's very broken, especially for a unit you could obtain early in the game, so think about that. I think he needs to get nerfed, and he's one of the most OP units that kind of fly under the radar. Next, we have Cameraman, who I think is balanced. Good stats, good job against this niche. You know, everybody uses it, not talked about a whole lot, but it's in a ton of strategies. Beginning players love him, and I don't blame him. He is a great unit, but he does his job well. He has his limitations, and I think he is just the epitome of a good, solid unit. Dark Cat needs a rework, though. Dark Cat just gets outclassed very quickly by Ninja Cat, Ninja Cat by the end of Chapter 1, Empire of Cats, is already outclassed, so they could both use a rework. He's not on this list, but Dark Cat is, and the problem with Dark Cat is he has very low stats, and he costs as much as Sumo Cat, so people are going to start using Sumo Cat early mid-game over him, especially in 4-star stages where you can't even use Dark Cat. So people easily forget about him because of that. He gets outclassed by good meat shields like erasers and stuff, and you could deploy 2 erasers for the price of one of these. And then even after that, Elemental Duelist Cat completely smokes him in terms of anti-red competition for cheap, spammable units that wield swords. So think about that. He needs a rework, some new niche, something. I mean, the way Axe Cat is right now, he's never going to be relevant. And I just mentioned Sumo Cat, and I think Sumo Cat, believe it or not, he could use a buff. I think that his price needs to be reduced. He costs 300, and if he costs 250, I feel a lot more people would use him. And if he was a hair faster, you know what? I'm just gonna move that to rework because that's multiple issues. I think he needs more health, and not more health. He needs to be cheaper, and he needs more speed. And if you give him those two things, he will become an absolute powerhouse, and he will become meta again. And it would be hard not to use him if he was cheaper and had faster speed. It's like the Paris Cat effect. You get stuck buying so many of these, and then you have no cash left. And at the end of the day, you're only doing this for one meat shield that has similar stats to an Eraser Cat. So think about that. And after that, we have Can, who might need to get nerfed because for 675 cents, Can has Uber level stats, which of course are nerfed, which of course are limited by slow movement speed, single target attack, low range, but at the same time, absolutely insane. There's really little. I think there's little arguing that Can is incredibly powerful, and he himself has power creep the spammable meta. So he's insane, though. I mean, look at his stats, and then you could even talent him so you get ×2 money. It's like highway robbery. Valkyrie, she just needs a buff, I think. I think people accept that. People accept that after Empire of Cats, her usage goes down quite significantly because you have Bahamut Cat, and in that chapter you get some new Ubers as well as you try to beat the moon. So that's something to note. But even in 4-star stages, Valkyrie seems very feeble. Excuse me. And I think she needs a health and a damage buff because her range is alright. She has her speed and everything. We get she's going to be a rusher, but she needs more stats. For her range, she has very low DPS, low health, and her niche is very inconsistent. So, where'd I put my water? I must not have brought it up here, but she needs a serious buff because her niche isn't consistent enough. It's not good enough. Her range is only decent, and her stats are below average for her range and cost. So, she needs a basic buff on her health and damage. Next on the list is Mineko, and I think Mineko also needs a buff. She's very cheap, but dry throat. She's very cheap and everything, but she definitely needs more stats for her favor, or maybe not even stats, maybe a little bit more damage, and raise the 15% critical hit chance to a 30% critical hit chance, and people will start using her again. But 15% chance is ridiculously low for her recharge time, and very rarely do you get a productive outing out of her, despite her costing less than a Eraser Cat. She does need a buff, though. Yeah, her price is very cheap, but you get what you pay for with her. Next, we have Papaluga, and Papaluga, great unit on paper. It looks like he has a ton of range. He could do some decent DPS if his shots hit. He can curse enemies with up to around 65% uptime. But his big issue is that none of it clicks. He misses multiple of his 3 hits most times. So you're really only getting about 20% uptime. And on top of that, you're getting very low DPS, horrible survivability. The range is alright, but as soon as somebody catches him, it's over. And he costs as much as Bahamut Cat. So you got to think about that. He costs $4,500, and that's a lot of money to drop on a free death that isn't proccing. And for those who don't know what proccing is, I mean, using the special abilities, which is curse in this case, and does not make him viable. So he needs a rework. Give him 100% uptime. Give him 2 knockbacks or something. I don't know. Or even another niche. Have him curse and weaken or something. Because wherever he is right now, the true form did not help him out. And he is still crap. Next, we have Thundia, who I think is balanced. Does not need to be nerfed, but does not need to be buffed either. She just does her job against the anti-red niche, and, does a ton of damage against them. And if you need her as a generalist, she's alright. But I don't think she needs a huge buff or needs to be nerfed. And also going in the balance category is Green Shellcat. And Shellcat, you just throw him in and he tanks. And he's a very useful unit, but I wouldn't say he's broken because, long recharge keeps him at bay. You can't spam him like you spam other units' his price range. And, he stalls units, and there are very few units in the game that can do what he does. So, unique niche. And if you were to nerf him, you'd take that away from the community. So, keep that. Paris Cat. I'm trying to think of where to put her. But I'm going to say a rework. I think she needs to become a little cheaper. Bring her down to 7 or 800 cents and increase her recharge time by a second, because people are getting in the habit of just spamming her, and it's not helping their wallets. Make her a little cheaper and give her a little bit more recharge time so people aren't spamming their money away like it's nothing, because you buy 5 or 10 of her and you're going to be drained on money unless it's a very high high income stage, Star Ocean or whatever. You have all those dogs. She's amazing for that, because the dogs die, you have maximum wallet, and you need to spam. So she's great. But other stages seem to be a huge drag for her, So I think she needs a little bit of reform. Stat-wise, she's pretty balanced, but the rework in this case is because of her price and her recharge. Misley could also use a rework. It's the mechanics of Misley that really buried the usage of her, because Misley, believe it or not, Misley's a pretty good anti-alien Uber, but the problem is the knockback and slow has created the infamous Misley syndrome, and this Misley syndrome has, made her the bane of existence to a lot of YouTubers and gamers alike, because they see Misley, they roll Misley, and they want to break their phone because they heard of Misley syndrome. And Misley syndrome ain't half bad, but it really does depend who you're fighting against. You don't want to push yourself into, like a Neandem or something. You don't want to push the Bun's symbol back and, have that alien Neandem snipe at your units, or your Cly 1 or something. But if it's just a bunch of short-range units or whatever, then Misley is a great anti-alien Uber. Very situational. The rework should be to probably remove one of them, just give her a better knockback or a better slow chance and proc. Uala, I think Uala is balanced, and that's because of the true form. Before that, I think Uala was underpowered, but by giving Uala a specific niche and by buffing the stats, it was a very well-made decision by Ponos. Balrog. Balrog, really interesting unit. I think he needs to be nerfed a little bit because of how powerful the extra damage is. And I'm not complaining, because I just beat Cappy today with it. And you guys have to realize, though, that I have him at level 50. He's doing over 500,000 damage per swing when he's below 50% health. And that is absolutely berserk. I mean, he has 6-digit DPS. And then you bring in Pico and Passaway, and I have Thunderbolt, and I'm like perma-freezing this guy, and he can't do anything. He's being force shot by my Bahamut. Well, not Bahamut, my Balrog. Another example was in 3-star Uncanny Legends. What was the stage? Eldritch Forces, right? They send out the Relic Bun, and my CPU, I forgot to take him out. I forgot to take Balrog out of my lineup. The CPU spawns him, and all of a sudden, he absolutely finesses him. I don't know how to explain it, but he 3-shotted him because of his damage. And I couldn't beat that stage with my Chronos and Matama, but thanks to the CPU, I was able to beat it because it sent it out. And Balrog was absolutely insane. He stalled them for so long that... He stalled Bundle in the Relics for so long that my units became uncursed and they controlled, and then he came in and absolutely wrecked them. So, a little bit of a nerf for him, but I love the guy, and I honestly hope he doesn't get nerfed. And last but not least, joining his counterpart there, I think Eraser is a crucial member of the Battlecats loadout, and I think that both these racers are in 90% of people's decks. And the 10% are for the people doing 4-star stages right now, or in restriction stages, because you'd be nuts to not have at least one of those two guys in your loadout. But that leaves off my take on reworking, buffing, balancing, and nerfing units in the Battle Cats. Making sure the game is fun, making sure that all units get a chance to perform well, and that the units that need to be reworked get reworked, because some of them are useless right now. A lot of units with potential aren't doing their jobs, and there's a lot of really good units absolutely carrying them out of the last few years. But if you guys enjoyed this video or want a part 2 or anything like that, comment down below. And as I said earlier, if you enjoyed, consider liking, subscribing, and turning notifications on, because it all helps the channel grow, and it allows me to produce Battlecast content for y'all. But SpartanCat signing off, and I wish to see you all in the next video. Peace.